Welcome back and happy Friday. I forgot to mention that off the top. The 22nd Amendment to the Constitution limits American presidents, well, of course, it's the American Constitution, to 2 terms in office. Hasn't stopped President Trump and those who support him, however, from suggesting a 3rd term.
Should I run again? You tell me. There's your controversy right there. There's your controversy.
We want Trump in 28. That's what they can't stand. A man like Trump comes along only once or twice in a country's history, right? We want Trump.
I want to bring in Josh Chaffetz. He is a professor of law at Georgetown Law School. Josh, it's great to have you here. Thanks. Very briefly, give me your commentary legally on the 22nd Amendment and all this chatter, which the White House likes to describe as just sort of a joke about a 3rd Trump term.
Well, it is a joke, constitutionally speaking. I mean, the text of the 22nd Amendment is incredibly clear that presidents can only run for 2 terms in office. There's just no wiggle room there.
I have seen some, I won't call it scholarship, I will call it advocacy, legal analysis saying, well, that means 2 consecutive terms. And if Trump hasn't served consecutively, it's still viable.
The people who drafted the 22nd Amendment knew how to use the word consecutive. They chose not to use it. They knew they had examples of presidents who had served non-consecutive terms before. So this would not have been a surprise to them. And again, they chose not to say that. They chose to say not more than 2 terms.
I want to play for you something that Stephen Miller, a top advisor to President Trump, said yesterday as means of a civics lesson on the powers of the presidency. Let's play that.
And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for.
You know the vesting clause well, Josh. Stephen Miller's articulation, that is a certain articulation of presidential power. Is it the only articulation of presidential power?
No, and indeed, that's a very extreme articulation of presidential power, because notice, he didn't just say the traditional, sort of what's known as the unitary executive position, which is that the president has complete control over the executive branch. He actually said that the president represents the entirety of American democracy.
The embodiment of the democracy.
Right, that's crazy. Where's Congress in that picture? You know, the Congress is, if anything, significantly more representative than the presidency, and things like civil service protections are a creature of Congress. They are a creation of laws passed by Congress, starting with the Pendleton Act in 1883 and continuing through civil service reforms after that, where Congress has chosen and presidents have signed on to give bureaucrats protections from being fired so that we can have a competent, professionalized civil service.
And under the rubric of civics lessons, let's remind ourselves, Article 1 of the Constitution outlines congressional powers. There are 10 articles in Article 1, 10 sections. Article 2 defines presidential powers. There are 4 sections there. That's suggesting that the framers of the Constitution were much more concerned about establishing and verifying the powers of Congress.
Absolutely. Congress was the first branch in the Constitution for a reason. The founders expected that it would be the most powerful branch, that it would be the branch that set national policy. And then, indeed, when you look at Article 2, the article dealing with the presidency, one of the most important provisions in Article 2 is what's called the Take Care Clause, the requirement that the president take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That is an actual obligation that the president has to follow the law, not to sort of make up whatever he wants the law to be, but to follow the law. And that means abiding by statutes that Congress has passed.
This week, the president signed an executive order that said he and the Attorney General speak for independent agencies, such as the SEC, the FCC, FTC, FDIC, the Federal Reserve. Evaluate that legally.
So that is, inconsistent with, 140 years of American practice. It's been a long time, since the creation of the Interstate Commerce Commission in the late 19th century, that we have had certain agencies, not all of the agencies, but certain agencies that are independent agencies, which is to say that they are not fireable at the pleasure of the president, but rather get to sort of make their own decisions and stay in office either for a set term of years, as we were talking about with the FBI director, or unless they do commit actual malfeasance in office. That has been sort of understood to be the case. The Supreme Court blessed that in the 1930s, and the Trump administration is simply saying, we don't believe that. We're going to try to undo that and assert sort of top-down presidential control over even these agencies that Congress created and structured to be independent.
And even presidents who've been accused of trying to expand presidential power, like President George W. Bush, along with Dick Cheney and the unitary executive theory, didn't go this far.
I mean, some people have certainly pressed this argument before, but nobody has actually tried to assert this power the way the Trump administration is doing right now. No.
Josh Chaffetz of the Georgetown Law School, thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate it.